Morning YouTube, GXW here. I'm going to make a couple of videos about some of the equipment that I use for, well, shooting my YouTube videos. I'm sure that there are other people out there that have done similar, but this is my take on the equipment that I have, kind of a review of some of it, and my just advice on what people need to get started. You might be pleasantly surprised as to how simple it is, and then again, if you're a professional photographer or videographer, you're probably going to laugh and point. Either way, I'm going to start off today with my main camera. I'm filming this from one of my action cams, which I will review in the second video about equipment for YouTube. My main camera is a Sony RX100 V. Right from the get-go, a couple of things. This camera is and was billed as pretty much the ultimate vlogger's do-it-all camera. It's capable of 4K video footage. It's capable of incredibly beautiful stills. Right off the top, again, it's extremely expensive. It cost me $1,000, give or take, and it's very well made, and of course it has Sony's quality, but it has some significant gotchas, as well as some aha moments that I myself figured out after messing with it for a while. I guess I'll go, good, bad, and then my take as a format for these videos, and starting from the top, the good. I mean, this thing has an incredible feature set. I'll power it on here. It has a high-performance pop-up viewfinder that you can use, and instead of using the very nice screen that's on the back, the viewfinder is adjustable for optical distance. So a person who wants to use it with a viewfinder won't find that it's impossible to use either way. It has a screen that can be pulled out and tilted at virtually any angle, and this is one of the gotchas that I found with this camera. You can use it for like selfie mode if you bring the screen up to the top and tilt it into where it touches, and then turn it around like this. It will flip over and show you what the camera's lens is seeing. The problem is, or say the kind of aha for me is, if it's not right up against this, it doesn't flip the image. So if you have it sit like this, the image on the screen is upside down. If you bring it up to where it's in contact like this, then the image flips over, and you can, if you're standing in front of the camera, see what's on the screen right side up and in detail. So that was the first kind of, I couldn't figure out why my images were still showing on the LCD as upside down. It has a built-in, fairly decent pop-up flash unit. Not very large, but it actually does remarkably well for at least, the stills I've taken where I've needed that. And it is absolutely chock full to the brim with good features for somebody who's got way more skill with using the camera than I do. I can take passable photographs and video with this thing, but I am by no means the target audience when it comes to the quality. It has a standard 1/4 inch on 20 screw mount in the bottom, and to take the battery and card out, this gate opens at the bottom. It takes a full-size SD card. Of course, I'm using a micro SD U3 128 gig Samsung card, but it certainly could take any SD or micro SD card, and the battery comes out, pretty much like any other small camera. I'll get to battery life and the good and bad about the battery life here in a little bit. The USB connection for charging is on the side, as well as for transferring data on and off. This camera does have Wi-Fi and near-field communication, and the ability to screencast footage to a nearby video display that's compatible. And it also has an HDMI port that will require an adapter if all you have is regular HDMI cables. Some of the other things about it that are, at least I am impressed with, it has a really good quality audio pickup built in from this microphone. I know some people are going to sneer at me for that because you probably have shotgun mics and boom mics and area mics and everything else, but I don't. I have a small Sony audio recorder, which actually works really good. It takes SD cards and it has built-in flash. This takes really good audio for me, and of course it has an external mic plug if I wanted to extend it. But between this and the small microphones on these action cams, that's the only audio system I currently have. So I was pleasantly surprised with how well the microphones on the actual Sony camera worked. Would I get more microphones? Oh, heck yes. I certainly plan on getting a good quality shotgun mic and area mic for doing my videos as I mature and get more skill. But for starting out, nobody who's working in close proximity to this camera within, say, 10 feet should have to worry about anything as long as you're not whispering. The screen is really nice. It's very bright when adjusted up. It's clear. It has two different modes, regular and high quality mode. I won't fiddle with it too much since this is supposed to be a brief review, but see if I can get it to go into that location in the menu. Yeah, display quality I have set to high. I don't know if you can see that. These action cams are not the greatest for taking footage of text, but it definitely has an amazingly rich set of features as far as things you can change. It can be stepped up or stepped down to take video footage as low quality as, I think, 480p or 720p, and all the way up to 4K by 30 frames per second. Photographs-wise, it has a manual adjustment ring. In video mode, this is used typically for zoom, but it can be set in manual mode, and this can be used to focus, zoom, adjust a number of features and functions, and I believe you can even change what it does in different modes and memory settings to suit your tastes, although I'm by no means an advanced enough user to have messed with that feature yet. This thing is heavy. I mean, it's really remarkably heavy for its size. You don't pick it up and think, oh geez, plastic, cheapy cam. It feels like a very solidly made piece of machined aluminum. If you've ever held some of the better quality Leica cameras, or Leica, however you want to pronounce it, or some older Canons, other cameras I've had some experience with, it's very solid. I was genuinely, I don't know if you can feel that through the camera or see it shake, but it's definitely a solid piece. I don't look at it and go, oh geez, I'm going to break it sticking it in my bag. The only thing I'm worried about when I carry it around is the screen itself being whacked on something. Now I think I'll go to the dark side of the thing. Well, the thing I talked about a moment ago with the size is also a reason why I have a problem with it. I mean, I have huge hands. I'm just a huge guy. My hands are almost 11 inches from span to span. I don't know if you can see that, but this camera is like a toy to me. The easiest way to describe the size is it's like picking up a deck of cards that's about, I don't know, 50% thicker. So, the size of a pack of cigarettes or thereabouts. It's really tiny, and that has some trade-offs, and that's what I'll talk about now. First trade-off of this thing is it has major overheating issues in every video mode that I've shot footage in. Some people say, oh no, the 5-minute limitation. If you read about this camera online, everyone says if you shoot it at 4K video in 5 minutes, it throws an overheat icon on the screen, and it does. In fact, I am only partly able to get 5-minute 4K videos out of it without it throwing that. Now, bear in mind, this is when the interior temperature in my house was, hovering 85 degrees, so it's not like this was a cool autumn day or I was outside where I could get any air to it. This was just on a tripod. When I opened the back up to tilt the screen for doing tripod work, shooting it like this area is exposed, and when it is, it's a lot better. I can then easily get the 5 minutes that it says out of 4K, and actually I've gotten longer. I ran it for almost 11 minutes in 4K with the back open, and it did not shut down, although the screen dimmed and the overheat warning came on. Something else I noticed I think a large portion of the overheat, or at least a significant amount, in addition to coming from the processor area back there, comes from the battery compartment. When it was overheating, the first time I felt the heat over here by the controls, and so I noticed that the battery had gone from full down to nothing, like completely gone in the space of a few minutes, and it had me confused. I have a spare battery, of course, so I took the spare battery and put it in the camera, turned the camera back on, and there was literally no overheat warning, and the entire exchange of batteries was like a 30-second deal. It wasn't some, go to the back bedroom, hunt it down, long thing, but the battery was hot that I took out, and the battery I put in was cool. So in addition to using a lot of processor, I have a sneaking suspicion it's also really drawing more current from the battery than it probably should. Another thing I'll talk about with the battery issue, these batteries do last about 400 stills, and they last about 60 minutes of video at 1080p and not even at 4K, so you definitely want to have more than one. Your camera's got some incredible features, but a better heatsink would have gone miles towards making it shoot 4K better, and you didn't include an external battery charger. So you'd have to plug it into USB or buy an aftermarket or additional charger in order to be able to keep batteries fresh and at the ready. And at the rate this thing uses batteries, especially when you're shooting video at high definition, you really want to have spares around for doing that. It has no external microphone connector of any kind that I can find or could find referenced. I don't know if it's possible to use the USB port to stick some kind of a USB microphone into it, or if it can accept a Bluetooth microphone. I'm simply not that advanced in my use of it yet. If it does, or somebody knows, and you want to put it in the comments, that'd be great. I did already mention the strange behavior of not being able to get it to flip the image over for selfie mode until I had repositioned everything just right. But once you do figure out where it goes, it's pretty easy to get that aha, click, there it goes moment for flipped over video to use for selfies. Trust me, I'm not the kind of person you want to see lots of selfie footage from. But, if you're going to use it for that, it's something to be aware of. Last but not least, when it comes to the negatives, the camera is gorgeous. It takes incredible footage. I guess I should the last two things. First one is tuning for color. I watched some really awesome videos online from a couple of different channels that they talked about how to set this thing up for doing good quality video. And although the advice was great, and the piece of software that they used from a company called Blackmagic Design, the problem is at least on my PC under Windows 10, it crashes anytime you go into color and do any kind of a LUT change. So I had to change the camera away from using program mode back to using basically just automatic video select. And I found that the color correction or color space that it uses just isn't quite right, especially in the blue-greens, at least for me. I really wish I had software that I could trust to do the color correction for my video, but that nodal editing with the LUTs to use a different profile and to, like, say, use cinema or film-like LUTs to improve the look of your footage just isn't working because, in my case, the software crashes. I spent more than 20 years as an IT and computer guy, and so, the computer has all the right drivers. Windows 10 is fully updated. I have not yet tried the same piece of software under Linux, which is something I will do, and if it works, I'll definitely give a review of that software and how I like it at that point. But so my first complaint being that I couldn't edit the color profiles the way I want yet. That may be totally due to me. Again, I'm not a videographer. As you can tell from all my electronic stuff, I do electronics and radio control models and computers, amongst my other hobbies. People say that they think the video from this is too hot, too sharp. I would say it is not sharp enough, at least not for my taste. The output footage at 1080p looks a little soft to me, like it was actually shot at 720 and then brought up to 1080, which I don't understand why that would be. I have turned up the sharpness in the camera to where I think it's okay, but then it looks really blown out when it's viewed on a 4K monitor and looks over sharp and granular. So I've left it pretty much stock, but if your tastes run towards really contrasty, sharp video versus more smooth and soft or color video, look at some detailed samples before you make a decision on a camera like this guy. I guess with all that said, this is my GXW take on this camera. I mean, there's a lot to love about it. The Sony RX100 V is kind of, well, I mean, it's billed as pretty much an ultimate vlogger's camera, and I can see that. I mean, especially if you're going to combine video footage with tons of stills, you're going to do slideshows or snapshots or things like that in a mix with it. It's great. There's a million people online that have demos up of the kind of incredible footage this camera is capable of shooting. It has become my go-to central camera, and it's also my personal, like, pocket camera, still and quick video. When I'm going anywhere and I think I might want to take a camera bigger than my phone, and I'll talk about smartphones as video cameras in a future video. This guy, this RX100 V or 5, goes with me everywhere for that. The worst issue for this thing is it's still the overheating problem. I know people have tried different mitigation strategies. There's a guy who stuck heat sinks to the back of it and had some good luck doing that. And I'll try some different strategies myself in the future, but this shouldn't be necessary. I mean, $1,000 pocket super camera should not have to have somebody strap a fan or electronics heat sinks to the back of it to get it to take footage continuously at a resolution that it's rated to shoot video in. I mean, I realize it isn't a dedicated camcorder, but if you take the lens system and the large sensor system out of the picture, there's a lot of smartphones that can shoot 4K video for a hell of a lot longer than 5 minutes, and some of them shoot footage that is really, really good. Again, I'll do a video on that, but for a $1,000 camera, well, I wouldn't say that the overheating problem is a complete deal breaker. It's a big thing to be aware of, and people are going to rant. I'm sure I'll hear back in the comments that, oh, well, you should have known that before you bought it. Well, I did know that it had the potential for overheating at 4K, but I didn't intend to be shooting most of my footage at 4K. And the same people who created videos saying, hey, this thing overheats on 4K, also said, well, it's just fine at 1080p. So because I intend to shoot everything, or had intended to shoot everything at 1080p, I didn't think anything of it. However, even at 1080p 60, it still throws an overheat warning inside 10-15 minutes. So it didn't shut off. It continued shooting footage, and the footage looks just fine. But still, either Sony's software is way trigger happy on telling you that it's overheating, in which case they need to adjust the threshold dramatically, or two, it's accurate and the thing is dangerously over hot, either because it's going to hurt the sensor or because the processor can't cope. In either case, shame on Sony for not having the common sense necessary to mount the heat sinks or to make the body large enough, which, you know, for me would be great anyway to have it be a little bit bigger. But it still doesn't make the camera unusable. In fact, it still has a lot to say for it. You know, I'm not a professional. I'm not even an advanced amateur, either as a photographer or videographer. I've taken some really cool pictures, and I'm trying my best to become a decent video blogger on YouTube, but I'm not the kind of person who can get the most out of this. I mean, I can set a mode, click a button, adjust things. Speaking of which, I should have mentioned this earlier, this is not a touch screen. This LCD is beautiful looking, but it's not a touch screen. Everything is done from this dial and from these buttons. It's not a huge deal because most of the important modes, once they're set, are accessed from the standard wheel type at the top. And of course this functions as a joystick with an enter button as well as a scroll wheel. And so that won't prevent you from using it, but it's definitely kind of a hey, there's no touch screen on there. So if you're used to a touch interface and some of the ergonomic advantages it brings, this camera does not possess it. I'm, as I said, now like the third time, I'm not a professional. I just spent a lot of time looking through the user's guide, and even that hasn't given me the necessary insight to get the most out of this, although I certainly will continue trying to do so, and it has become my main machine. When you see most of my good videos, this will be the camera that I use. My final opinion is this: if you can afford this and you're willing to put up with the thermal problems that it has when shooting high-definition video, It's fantastic as a do-it-all camera. It is super compact that pretty much does what it says on the tin. But if you're starting out, I would avoid this camera unless you have a specific reason why its set of features that you're aware of is a necessity for what you're doing. As an aside, again, the thing I personally have a problem with more than anything else isn't the overheating issue, ironically, it's the size. You'll probably see in some of my footage that you can't unsee that I'm 6'6" and 350 pounds. I have massive hands and an 85-inch physical reach. This camera is like really tiny. I use it on a monopod when I'm doing any kind of video. In fact, that's what this action cam is currently sitting on, is a little trigger grip that has the ability to transform into a little baby tripod. I would attach something to it to get the most out of it. You're not going to lose much other than the fact that, of course, when there's something screwed in, you can't open the door to change cards or change batteries. So you do have to unscrew it from the mount in order to do that. For a pocket camera, it's incredible, but for a long-term video shoot camera, it leaves kind of a lot to be desired. This has been GXW. Thanks for listening to my YouTube gear review on the Sony RX100 V. And if you like this, I'll be doing another video shortly about these little action cams, as well as getting started in using your smartphone's camera instead or alongside. Thanks. Have a great day.